Welcome to the NBA Hangout presented by Playbook Sports. I'm your host, Brandon. With me, as always, is Dave. Dave, how are you?
Yeah, things are good, man. How are you?
I'm doing good. A couple weeks since our last talk, but we are here to talk all things wrapping up the NBA season pretty much. Since we have a couple games left in the season for most of those teams. Teams are still fighting for playoff position, playing position, and figuring out who they're going to play in, who they're going to play, and who's going to be in the play-in. Get all to that in a further episode. But today we're going to talk about some of the biggest disappointments, the biggest surprises, a little bit about the Bucks and what their future is looking like with Dame's injury, and with how Doc has been handling that team, as well as the rookie class. So how have you been in this little 2-week break?
Yeah, humming along. March Madness is going down, so I'm not following it too much at all, to be honest. It's just kind of neat that it's happening. Apparently everybody's bracket blew up in like week one or like game one, so
Classic March Madness.
Classic March Madness. Raptors are good, bad. It's a vibe. It's a thing. Yeah,
I can feel it with the good bad stuff over with the Heat as well. They're really bad and then they're decided to be good again. It's the way of life. It's the way of life of these teams. But yeah, starting with I guess we can start with some of let's go positive first. So let's start with some of like the pleasant surprises of the year so far, and when maybe some things that panned out that we weren't expecting. So I think starts off, I think the Clippers were a team that, we're entering the season. Kawhi was hurt. They got rid of Paul George. We really didn't know where their scoring was going to come from outside of what James Harden was going to provide, and they were able to manage that and some more with it. They're looking to be in that playing position, but with a pretty favorable record at 43 and 32. They're games out of just a couple games out of being out of the play-in, and just having a solid playoff spot. So, how did you feel about the Clippers this year with being a little bit better than maybe we expected to start off the year?
Yeah, I'm quite impressed with the Clippers, mostly because I believe at the beginning of the year I probably said that they were like deep enough, and that like outside of maybe their starting unit, like how's this team gonna do anything? Like where, like you said, where's the scoring gonna come from, and all this kind of stuff. And now they've like slowly played their way into shape and into like health. Kawhi's looking great again. Maybe it's just because the playoffs are around the corner. No, I'm very impressed with the Clippers. I think you got to give a lot of credit to James Harden. We'll obviously give credit to Norman Powell's breakout, but I think more than anything, like James Harden, if you want to talk like an MVP is like the person most important to your team, then I think like James Harden would be in that conversation a lot more. He's been excellent.
Yeah, he's definitely kept that offense like humming right along through all the iterations of who they've had in, who they've had out. They have chunks of the year where Norm Powell was out, chunks of the year where Kawhi was out, and he's just been able to hum along and keep the offense going with him and like Zubac as well. I think he gets some credit too. He's been a solid big for them for this entire year, pretty much. So I think the other guy that we should give a little bit of credit to is Ty Lue. I think he kind of gets lost in these conversations. He took over that team a few years ago, and he's kept that team always having a good defense. So that's one of the ways that they've been able to stay in games. The offense has been, here and there, over this season they're ranked 19th in offense, but they've had some high peaks and they've had some low lows, but that's due to the fact of injuries and that stuff, that sort of stuff. But the one consistent thing that they've been able to have is their defense. And yeah, they have the 4th ranked defense on the year, and I think that's a lot to do with Ty Lue. When he first took over, he was kind of known for like having some creative defensive schemes, and I think he just kept that up and kept giving this team chances to competing on all these games that you would think that they wouldn't have as much of a chance in. Even when bringing in guys like Ben Simmons, giving him some some burden too over there. I think it's been cool to watch over with the Clippers to see that the one year where we kind of like lowered expectations for them, they seem to exceed it. So maybe we should do that a little bit more often. But now I think going into the playoffs, how do you feel about this team? against other matchups? Like, do you see them as a team that can make it out of the first round, maybe upsetting a team, or do you see it panning out as just a first and out type of thing, and just that being the end of their 2025 run?
I see them as a first and out, but like based on their 2025, like if they upset and overperformed, I don't think we should be surprised by that.
Yeah, I could see it too. Like, I think it's all matchup based when it comes to the West. I think there's a couple of teams that they could match up. Like, if they were to match up, for instance, with the Rockets, I think that would be interesting.
Yeah.
A lot of teams have been like saying that they're not scared of the Thunder for their youth. I think you can have the same kind of questions when you look at the Rockets. And I think a team like the Clippers would be a challenging one for the Rockets to go through in like their first real playoff against a first real playoff series against a team that would have two guys who are used to deep playoff runs in Kawhi and James Harden, used to getting out of the first round, used to making it far into the playoffs. Maybe not so much with the Clippers, but their careers have said that they could do that. So I would be curious if they could pick someone up, like if they could match up with a team like that in the first round. And
Yeah, I think it'll be tough if it's like a Denver or somebody else who's
yeah,
kind of like that battle hardened
war
team.
ready. Yeah.
Yeah.
But even like a Lakers matchup, a Clippers Lakers matchup would be kind of fascinating to me. I think again, LA and LA can't escape it somehow.
It's always a great matchup though, so
Yeah,
like it doesn't really matter.
yeah.
Yeah, I think that would also probably make for a fun series. Yeah, Clippers. I mean, they should pat themselves on the back. Like, really, like beginning of the year, nobody thought the Clippers would be anything but a lottery team. So this is this has been really good for them.
Yeah, good stuff with the Clippers. And then, we should go. Maybe we'll go back and forth. So we'll look at one positive, and then we'll go to the other end of it. So a disappointment. I think the first one that has to like jump out, at least what jumped out to me right away, was the Sixers season. And where that was looking like going into the season, where they were probably projected to be a top 5 seed at the minimum. I think a lot of people had them, with the acquisition of Paul George, getting him over there. You had your wing guy to pair with Maxey and Embiid. Now Embiid had one of his most difficult seasons, let's say, from a health standpoint, this year, battling lots of lower leg injuries, particularly with the knee, and having to have it shut down and looking into the surgery and that type of stuff, or corrective options for his knee to make sure he's better in the future. And Paul George suffering a lot of injuries as well, having a really, really down year from what we know Paul George to be. And Tyrese Maxey really trying to hold it together, but you could see after a while it's just too much for even him to pull together. I think he got hurt as well. Jared McCain, like they had some promising youth on that team, and he got hurt. So just a really, really disappointing season all around from the Sixers. And I guess my question to you is, where do you see it going from here for them?
I'm probably pessimistic on the Sixers. I think that their goal should be to like move Paul George and move Joel Embiid and try to build around like McCain and Maxey and try and retain Grimes and just like it sucks sometimes, but it feels like a start over. I don't think they're going to do that. I think they're going to bet on the best versions of these guys coming back, that they'll figure out something with Embiid's knees, the way that Kobe figured it out. They'll figure something out with Paul George, just like turn back the clock, I guess, somehow. And then just fill in around the edges as well, make the team deeper and more resilient. That should be like a goal of the off season. This is what I assume they'll end up doing. I don't know. I think there's too much risk involved. I think the team's too risky.
I think, unfortunately, that at this point, I think the Paul George thing, they definitely have to explore, try moving him as best you can. There's no sense of kind of keeping him around, like unless you really believe that he could revitalize his career in Philly, then I guess you gotta give it one more shot. But I think if you can get anything from this offseason, you just kind of got to do it. I think with Embiid though, I think we talked about it last season about maybe it might be time to move on from Embiid. I think last season would have been the time to do it because I think now with it looking like that they're looking at a medical exemption for him in case he has to retire from how bad his knees are. So I think when something like that's on the table, maybe it doesn't come to fruition, but the fact that that's even being thought about and talked about means that they're really worried about that knee. And if they're that worried about that knee, I find it hard for them to find anybody to take that chance and making them like being a trade partner with them and willingly taking that risk, knowing how much you're probably gonna have to give up for an Embiid. So I think you're kind of stuck with him, which at least to your point that they might kind of have to run some of these things back and try to make it work in some fashion, which is just going to be a kind of like a slow death to this era of Sixers basketball is what it feels like at this point, which is sucks to see.
Well, I mean, I think more than anything, like if you're a Sixers fan, it's got to be really disappointing to have gone through the process era to then have it show you such like promise. But to have also known that you've missed really badly along the way, like Fultz over Tatum, you know.
Yeah, that one's gonna hurt for a while.
That one's, you know, like every team's got that, right? But like you had Ben Simmons and he was outstanding and then just lost his confidence. You know, like it's for all the ups, there have been like an equal amount of downs in the process era, and it's really like the more I think about it, the more like tough it's got to be like a Philly fan and be a Philly fan like right now. You know, like all you've got really to hang your hat on is Tyrese Maxey, and if he's getting hurt because he's doing too much, like.
It's tough.
His role is to do too much because they don't have anybody else.
Yeah. Luckily, I think they're top 6 protected this year. Their pick. So hopefully, they're hoping that they can keep that pick this year and build on something moving into the future.
Otherwise, I think it goes to Oklahoma.
Of course it does.
Oklahoma could get the 7th pick in this draft.
They own my pick somehow.
Yeah.
I don't have any picks, but they own it. Yeah, so it's difficult out there for Philly fans for sure, and it's going to be a tough couple years they're going to be headed into, especially with that Embiid injuries on the horizon and all that type of stuff. So, yeah, that's the Sixers for you. Yeah, we'll go back to positive.
Yeah,
go back to positive. That's too sad. So, Detroit, probably one of the biggest surprises. Had one of the biggest leaps. Record-wise from last year to this year. We have an emerging star in Cade Cunningham coming over there. You have JB Bickerstaff probably deserving of a lot of credit getting this group humming together, even with the injury of a Jaden Ivey for majority of this season. So what are your thoughts on the Detroit Pistons this year?
It feels like potential realized. Obviously, we were to anybody who's listened to this show for a long time, like we were high on Detroit last year, just to have egg on our face. Yeah. So we held off talking about Detroit this year, but it's such an interesting collection of young talent that like it had to work out at some point. You brought it up a couple shows ago that like you've got Cade as like a dark horse MVP candidate. Let alone just like star player. Like he's not a star. He's like an emerging superstar.
Yeah, exactly.
Completely, deserving of his first overall pick, completely living up to everything everybody ever said about him. He's been absolutely phenomenal. And then you've just got like natural progression from a lot of guys. Like Jaden Ivey got hurt, but he looked good this year.
Yeah.
Sir Thompson, he had the blood clots, but he's come back and he's looked good this year, right? You've got such a tough bunch of guys on this too, between like between like Isaiah Stewart, Ron Holland, or it's not Ron Holland. Sorry, it's
Ron Holland.
Is it Ron? Yeah, it's Ron
Yeah,
Holland.
yeah.
Sorry. I was thinking Ron Harper. Ron Holland, Isaiah
Yeah.
Stewart, even Duran, like they all just want to fight everybody. It's
Yeah, yeah.
amazing. You've got microwave scorers like Sasser off the bench who like never gets any talk, but like that guy can put a
Put
bucket
shots up.
straight.
You got
Yeah.
Malik Beasley as well for some shooting as well. Yeah,
Isn't
like
he
they
leading the league in like 3-point shooting or something, Malik Beasley this year?
he was at one point, and I don't know if he kept it up, but like yeah, he's
Yeah.
shooting like 9 threes a game and like hitting like 4. so so I wouldn't be shocked if he might still be the leader. But for a large chunk of the year, he was the leader. So
Yeah.
definitely, yeah, he's been playing his role, playing it well. Yeah, Tim Hardaway Jr. You talk about microwave scorers. Tim Hardaway Jr. We talked about Philly. They lost Tobias Harris to Detroit, and maybe he was the secret ingredient the whole time over there, because now he's gone over here and this team's in the playoffs.
Can't pay him enough. Yeah.
Can't pay him enough. There, everyone was worried about that contract, but it seems to be working out just fine for Detroit. And yeah, just creating that identity is what I think has been one of the bigger surprises, I think, for the NBA as a whole. Just to have this team that has like this hard-nosed chip on their shoulder, it's kind of missing. Like that used to be Detroit's kind of identity before, when they're winning with Big Ben and Rasheed Wallace and Chauncey, and even more so when it was the Bad Boy Pistons way back in the day. So it's nice to see that they've kind of come back to that identity again, once again. They have a top 10 defense on the season. I could expect that to rise in years to come, because Cade has that two-way ability. That's part of the reason why I'm high on him, is because he does the offense, he does the defense, he does it on both ends of the court. Jalen Duren's starting to figure out like the defensive side of things. He's always had like the physical gifts for it. It's just his mind wasn't really there. So it's good to see him starting to progress on that end of the court too, because he has everything that you kind of want from an anchor big man. So good stuff all around from Detroit.
Yeah, agreed. I'm excited to see them in the playoffs. I'm excited to see once he gets back and healthy, a healthy Cade Cunningham, just like what he can do in the playoffs.
Cade in the playoffs would be very fun, and I really hope that they can draw the Knicks in the first round. I don't know if they'll get there. They're 2 games behind Indiana right now. Yeah, I don't know if they'll get there. They can get to 4, but they won't get to match up with the Knicks. They might need to drop to 6, which maybe they're a game ahead of the Bucks. But we'll talk about later. The Bucks haven't been looking too bright either, so they might just stay ahead of the Bucks. But I think if Detroit can pull one of these Indianas, New Yorks, and even the Bucks, I mean, Bucks might be a little much for them, but like those other 2 teams, I think they can give them a real tough series. I don't know if they'll win. I guess I'll ask you the same question. Do you think that they can make it out the first round, or are they just a 1-0? And then next year we're seeing them with a more developed roster make more noise?
I think I have more confidence in Detroit getting out of the first round than I did the Clippers. But just like you wouldn't be surprised if the Clippers did it, I think you also wouldn't be surprised if like
they didn't do it.
Detroit got swept. Yeah.
yeah. All the juice just runs out.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think when I look at it too, I think Indiana just might be a little bit more polished and ready for the moment. Like if that's who they project to face in the first round right now, and that offensive power is strong, and their defense has been something that's really crept up in the last couple of weeks when you look at the Pacers. So like they've had a top 10 defense in the last 2 weeks as well. So that's a lot better than expected, and we know what they can do on the offensive end when they're humming. So if those 2 things are meshing, I think they're a problem for like a Detroit in the first round. And the Knicks have been there before, so you have to give them the edge in any series against them. So very easily can see them knocked out on that first round, but I think they can give a good fight this year, and then maybe in the offseason they get more and more pieces to help complement their core.
I see it. Yeah. I don't know how much more they can really get. Just like Detroit's going to find themselves like cost capped soon.
Yeah, because they're gonna have to start paying
Yeah.
people. So I really do wonder what the plan with Ivy will be, because I think that's like their little piece that
Ooh,
they can
yeah.
dangle if they want to make that the next step. Because there've been rumblings about Booker wanting to maybe not wanting to go there, but Detroit would be interested in acquiring a Booker. Guy like that. If they're looking for like guys like that, it'll be interesting to see what they can pull off in the off season.
I think there's going to be like moves to be made, and I think it's going to be one of these young teams that has like a lot of guys that could do it.
Mm-hmm.
All of them have proven to be pretty gun shy so far, though. Like Houston didn't make the move. Oklahoma hasn't made the move. The Magic haven't made the move. Detroit didn't make the move. Like at some
So
point,
they kind
you
of make the
know,
move. Yeah.
everybody's going to bid against each other for somebody. It should have been Luca, but he didn't
They
go to
didn't get that
market.
chance. Yeah, they didn't get that chance. I guess we can talk with we can go back to surprises and we can talk about probably one of the biggest surprises of the year is the Luka trade. um so like now we're a couple weeks, months removed from that trade. How are you feeling about the Lakers outlook with Luka ending this season? Are they a real playoff threat with LeBron, Luca, and Reeves? Reeves now also coming into his own on that team. I think that could be one of the guys put into bigger surprises. I'm not too sure if he's on that MIP list, but the most improved list. But I think he's kind of deserving with what he's been putting up these last few weeks, months.
Yeah, he definitely probably should be in that consideration for most improved. Reeves has been really good. And like, the team's done a really good job of like just like encouraging him, like telling him like in the press all the time that like Austin Reeves is awesome, like get out of his way, he's gonna score. Right. JJ's done a really good job about that.
Yeah.
LeBron did a good job until he got his shiny new toy. So I think the Lakers are probably looking pretty good. I think there's just like when you've got LeBron and Luca, it is that like magic element, if you will, where they can seemingly just kind of like will things to happen. Are the Lakers the most complete team? Are they the most balanced team? No, not at all. Do they get out of the first round? I think so. Do they get out of the second round? That one's hard to say. Like, are they going to play for, best team in the West? Like, I won't be surprised, but I wouldn't bet on it.
Yeah. I still have my reservations with the team. Like what Luca and LeBron can do on any given night, we'll keep them in any game and they could in any series. So you can never kind of discredit what they can do on any night. But I am worried about the defense. I know it looked a little better for a little bit but I think in the long run that I just don't have the most faith in what they can do to stop like an OKC or even like a Houston or a Minnesota, like some of these top teams who can get like really hot from downtown and stuff like that and have wings who can kind of expose that. I'm kind of worried about them going against a team like that and guarding them. I know on offense like LeBron and Luka will be able to figure out. It's still a little bit of a clunky fit because now you got like three guys who kind of need the ball in their hands when you include Reeves. Reeves seems to do well with the ball in his hands too. So I think we're just a year away from like them really looking like a scary team. But I'm worried that in the next year is LeBron. I know we keep saying this every year. Like he can't, but at some point he's going to be 60 years old and he can't keep doing this. So at some point LeBron at his age is going to slow down a bit. I think Luka gives him added energy and gives him more purpose to wanting to be the best version of himself for a full season, for another full season. But I'm not sure. Like we're already seeing his body kind of break down a little bit here and there, and I think that's going to be exasperated even more going into next year. So we'll see if he's going to be able to. If his body's gonna and Father Time's gonna hold off just enough for them to be really serious next year. But if he can be, I think next year this team can be quite scary.
Yeah, and just wait till they get Bryce James.
Bryce and Bronny on the rise. So.
No, I agree with you. Like the Mark Williams thing didn't come to pass, but it almost did. It shows that they still have like a couple more moves they can make, because the Lakers have always been kind of like up against it when it comes to assets. They keep rolling everything forward, right? So I think if they find that like that true center, that long-term center for themselves, that really just makes me a lot more confident in this team, as well as just a couple more, smart minimum contract role players picked up just to do some like work here or there. Lakers could be really good. I won't bet on them for this year though, I don't think.
Yeah, maybe a year just a little too early. I guess keeping with surprises, like surprising stuff that happened this year with the Luka trade. So the whole Jimmy Butler saga with Miami. So we know all that happened with it. But I guess my main question to you is I guess I got two questions. First will be like how you think the Warriors are going to be, their outlook is going to be with this trade now that we're closer and closer to the playoffs. If we still remain confident with it, and I guess my other one is, do you think this affects how superstars view Miami in the future? Because they're always looking for one. Do you think how this Jimmy situation went down will really affect how they get guys in the future?
I don't think so, because I would suggest that the Jimmy situation is a Jimmy situation. He's kind of pulled this everywhere he's been, where like eventually he sours on the team, kind of goes to war with them, works his way out, goes to a new team, has a lot of initial success. So I don't think this reflects poorly on Miami. I think Miami actually did a good job in facilitating and like working with their star, who was kind of, in my opinion, pretty obviously trying to be difficult. So I don't think it's a black mark on Miami at all. Like I think Miami looks pretty good coming out of this. Not necessarily like where the team is and how their performance is at, but like their front office, I think, looks pretty good. And then that plays into the other part, which is like, how do I feel like Golden State is like doing and looking? I think it works really well. I think this is the best Golden State has looked. I guess it's hard to say the best they've looked since like the Durant days, because they won a championship since Durant. But maybe the best they've looked since that championship. They just look complete. They look confident. Everyone on the team looks 5 years younger. Like it's
winning will do that.
It's a good thing, right? And just today they blew out Memphis, another good team, and like Steph was unreal and Jimmy was great.
Yeah, and that's what's scary. Yeah, Draymond with the triple-double. You had Jimmy with 27, and you had Steph with 50 plus points. And that can happen. Like that is not something that's outrageous for this team to happen. Maybe not 50 points from Steph, but you can get 35 plus from him on any given night. So I think that's the potential of this team, is like they're really scary if they get everyone going. I saw a couple of clips earlier with Jimmy just the pick and roll with Jimmy and Steph is just going to be really difficult for teams to guard, because I don't think people realize that when Jimmy was on Miami, he did a lot of screening as like a 4-man and just doing screen and rolling, and when he rolls to the basket, he rolls with such force that the defense just has to pay attention to him, and he goes quick. It's like quick but with force. So if you're not paying attention, he's there at the basket, and it's an easy pass for Steph. Steph more than capable of making that pass, and if you do catch on to what he's doing, you bring that help quick enough, he's going at such force that he's probably going to get free throws, or he's probably going to find an open guy. So it's going to be a different dynamic, I think I mentioned earlier, than when it's with Steph and Draymond, where Draymond kind of gets it in that that mid area, and he's able to like piece apart like where the advantage is on defense. Whereas Jimmy is just like sheer force and just athleticism and just IQ all wrapped into one, which is quite difficult when it's all working. I think the reason why I asked that on the Miami front though was Jimmy does have this habit, so I think that gives him some grace. And I think you brought up a good point that I think is overlooked, that they did work with him and they got him to one, a team that will give him a max, which is what he wanted, and two, a team that's competing for a championship, which is also what he wanted. So like Jimmy pretty much got what he wanted. He didn't get the destination in the Suns, but he got something probably even better for him when you really look at it. And but I also have to bring it up because like every star that they have had has had a falling out similar to Jimmy. So it's kind of like both of these toxic people meeting and having like this breakup, which was toxic, but it's kind of expected, but toxic. But it also kind of shows a pattern of like how Miami's handled their stars as well. Like Jimmy, he starts to show some age. They're hesitant to give him the max. We don't know if they would have or not, because Jimmy didn't wait that out. But it seemed like they're pretty hesitant. They want to make sure that he proved his worth for that contract. Jimmy felt he didn't need to. With Wade, when Wade ended up going to Chicago, he was on the latter years of his career, and Wade wanted to get paid for what he provided previous to the career, and the Heat were looking at it from the perspective of, no, we need to pay you for what you're gonna give us in the future, which is, and that creates a rift. Shaq nearly fought Pat. Tim Hardaway had a falling out with Pat Riley, even though he loves the Heat now. But like, all these things did happen with all these stars. So I'm wondering, it's damned if you do, damned if you don't. With LeBron, how could I forget? LeBron had a falling out with Pat Riley, but yeah, damn if you do, damn if you don't. When Pat was overseeing the big three in that era, he was too hard on those guys. He loosened himself up to deal with Jimmy, gave him a little bit more freedom. And then when that freedom felt abused, he tried to take it back, and then that creates a rift. So yeah, it's curious from my perspective to hear from someone from the outside, like if all those things, show a pattern that might need to switch with the way that Miami handles like their aging stars.
Well, I think just like LA has no time for a rebuild. Like, they don't do rebuilds, they just roll everything forward. Miami demands, like, the whole Heat culture thing demands like a certain level of engagement and a certain level of defensive intensity. And if you're a player who, you go there and you show you can do it, and then you start to get old and it becomes harder, so you start to prioritize maybe the offense, take some, like LeBron is pretty notorious for this, just taking like possessions off, if you will, just to like save energy and be there at the end, and like, have the energy should you need the basket. Well, like, Miami doesn't seemingly have any patience for a player, regardless of who you are or what you've done for the team. If you're not there and fully 100% engaged, like, it's a problem. It worked out for like Haslam because he was a bit player, so he could come in, he could play hard for 6 minutes, and it looks good. But do I think that like a Kevin Durant is a great fit in Miami? No, because I don't think like the culture works for him at this age anymore. That's why I think like, Miami's a good place to like, they're almost like a military school for like misbehaving kids. Like, send Ja there, send Zion there, like any of these guys who need like just like a little bit of a
straighten up. I mean, that's when LeBron came to the Heat. Like, it was during a period in time when like I mean, it's so long ago now, but there was a point in time when LeBron was not winning when he was going to the finals. And there was a big mark on his career as like, does this guy know how to win? Does he know how to close out games? Probably. Does he have that in him? And when he got sent to Miami, or when he chose to go to Miami, I should say, I think that that changed, right? So they kind of like help guide him towards the way of, okay, this is winning basketball. These are things that it takes to win at the highest of levels. You can have the most talented team, but these things still need to happen. I think losing in 2011 further helped accelerate that process for him. So he was able to take that back to when he went back to Cleveland in 2016 and all that type of stuff. But I think that's exactly how Miami played. They used to call it kind of like his college years for LeBron. He never really got to experience that. He got away from home. He did all that type of stuff. So I think Miami is definitely good for that stage of player. The KD one is interesting though. Yeah,
no, I continue. Just I don't think a lot of players are ever going to retire as a Miami Heat. Like they might go back and honorarily retire.
Yeah, exactly.
Miami Heat,
yeah,
but I don't think they legitimately spend their last couple years on the Heat. I don't think. Doesn't feel like there's room in that organization for guys who are just kind of getting to the end. Right?
Yeah. They're always looking forward and how can we get to another championship? And if you're not, if you're getting paid a max, they kind of want to, and which is fair for them. It's the NBA is kind of a tough business in that you don't get paid like more of your average jobs, you get paid for past performance. You might get a raise based on what you have done in the past, and then your raise, is that. In the NBA or a lot of these sports, they're paying you on what they think you can, on your potential. Not necessarily what you've done, but what they think you can do. Like these rookie contracts, they don't get all these big contracts because of what they've done already. They're getting it because we believe that you can do so much. So I think that's the trick with it. And I think Miami's just really stingent with that. They're not bending on that at all. It's we know we need to pay these other guys. We have young guys that we need to pay, and we need to figure out how we're gonna make it right. And I think the other thing too is when you talk about taking possessions off and stuff like that, I think when you're one of the better players on the team, they expect you to be a leader of the team and to provide those Heat quote unquote culture moments for the team, and that leadership that they need to show it. And if you're not engaged fully, then you're not doing that for the team anymore. I think that's what they value a lot over plenty of all these other things, like the habits that you build for your teammates. And if your teammates aren't feeding off that, then it might be kind of a lost cause at that point, in their minds at least.
It makes sense to me, and it makes sense to build an organization that way. I don't fault Miami, and I think they will always be one of the better free agency draws. But you should. I think you want to be in your upcoming, your rise years or your prime years if you want to be playing for the Heat. That's all.
Yeah. I think I'd have to agree with that as well. I guess keeping on losing the team, Taylor Jenkins. Apparently he lost the team and he had to get fired for that. They had a pretty bad record against teams that were above 500, teams that were in playoff position. There are a lot of murmurs of how the star players of the team, so your Jaws, your Jaren Jacksons, were feeling towards the coach not getting played in crucial moments of games, or being held out of the games longer than they thought they should be held out at. Not loving the way the offense has been implemented this year, despite it being a pretty decent offensive year for them. They clocked in at they have the 6th best offense in the league right now, but they did not enjoy it, which I think is a human nature thing that just doesn't really. That goes unnoticed in NBA. We always think about, okay, well, numbers. They're doing the right things shot profile wise, so they should have a good offense. But it's still humans playing this game. At the end of the day, it's still people playing this game, and they need to enjoy themselves and feel fulfilled in what they're doing to provide the highest level of competition for their team. And if they're not getting that, they're going to be upset, no matter the offensive success that it shows to be. But we clearly saw that there's some issues there. They lost to the Celtics this week. They lost to the Warriors today. They've struggled to beat any good team really. So I think with that comes the firing of Taylor Jenkins. Now, I think my biggest surprise, because I heard the murmurs throughout the year about them getting rid of him, but I think my biggest surprise is why 9 games before the season ends? Why now?
No, I agree 100%. You hear of coaches losing their jobs 9 games before the season ends, but it's because their team was eliminated, not because their team is 5th in the West
about to play in the playoffs.
And that to me is like the biggest shock about it too. Like why would you disrupt things right when you need like the continuity to shine through? Like this is where the season of work, you know, is about to come up and be put on display. Um and whether or not it works, like had they fired Jenkins in the offseason, like, yeah, 100%, like we get it. Like it just he got
Even
them close, but not over the line. So you
yeah,
need a
like
new coach. Yeah.
you get them failing in the playoffs and being like, okay, look, he wasn't able to do it,
Yeah.
and firing. But I mean, like the murmurs were there, so like even if they did it at the All-Star break, I think that would have been fine. You get in your interim
Yeah.
coach that maybe the players you've heard, like the players probably have spoken to management about the coaches that they do like. They did fire a lot of Jenkins assistant coaches, I think, over the offseason. So the writing was on the wall. So he probably has some sort of plan in place for who's going to take over. So I think if we would do it at the All-Star break, so this new coach can get more of a runway of what they can do and what they can implement, and for the guys to get a good feel. I feel like now it's just a little too rushed. Might as well wait till, like you say, like wait till they lose in the playoffs,
Yeah.
and then you could just put it on the coach, and then and you move on from there.
Yeah, because like this new coach is just gonna have to run essentially the same schemes. Um,
He could
you
just
know,
switch the rotation a bit. That's more or less what he's
yeah,
gonna
a
do.
little
Yeah.
bit. Like you can make a couple different in-game decisions, but it's like by the sounds of it, it was like schemes and usage, which isn't like, in-game decision making. And without like a training camp and an off season to you know plot out how you want to use your players, like you're not really going to change the schemes too much, and you're not going to change the usage, wholeheartedly. You're not going to like just suddenly give a guy 10 extra minutes a game. He hasn't worked into it. He's not ready to play 10
Yeah.
minutes. Like he can do it here and there, of course. They're professional athletes, but to increase somebody's workload by 25-30%, like do that in any industry. Like it takes time. It takes
Yeah, it's
time
gonna
for
take some time to
the
adjust.
yeah. So I don't know. People around like Memphis who like really follow the team and watch the team have said that like, oh, it kind of makes sense. Like Jenkins was always like on his way out, but from an outside perspective, the time frame makes zero sense, and I think it's going to affect them in the playoffs. I think that they will be. I don't think they'll make the second round.
Yeah, I think it's gonna be tough for them. And this is a team that I generally like. But so would you put like their failures, I guess we can say, I mean they're a fifth seed still. But
Yeah.
can we put their failures on this season on against playing against the best teams in the league? I guess from our outside perspective, we're not there. We're not in the locker room, so you don't know how Jenkins has been coaching. But I feel as if it's more of a front office issue than it is a coaching issue. I feel like they've lost a bunch of guys that they had during their good runs. They didn't pay out some of their guys even at the deadline this year. There's murmurs that they're looking at Jimmy, but what they end up doing is some cost saving moves. They ship out Marcus Smart, Conchar. They want to make sure they're not close to that tax line. So do you feel as if some of those moves over the years have kind of shorten their depth? Because I know a year or two ago we're high on their young guys, but some of them haven't panned out. So I think they might have invested maybe too much into their young guys and not kept some of that veteran presence. Like your Kyle Andersons, your Dylan Brookses, the guys that were there when you were really winning games and really making deep playoff runs. So is this more of a fault of the front office than it is the coaching? Could it be?
I think you got to be right on that, because like look, if you're beating up on teams that are like worse than you, well, that's what you should be doing, right? If you're losing to teams that are better than you, well, yeah, you want to be, maybe you want to have more wins in those games, but those are really the only games you should be losing, right? Like, you don't want to lose to Washington. You don't want to lose to the Raptors. You don't want to lose to the Pelicans, right? You want to lose to like the Celtics, to the Thunder, to the Nuggets. and then just figure out why you lost and how to get more competitive. So in a way, like, they're doing exactly what they're kind of supposed to be doing. It's just they feel like maybe they've reached their potential and it's not good enough, and
Mhm.
they're coming to terms with that in a sloppy way, in a way where they're like firing the coach. Not that it's really going to change their potential level. They, like, Jaw hasn't been the same exciting superstar Jaw that we've seen in the past, but he got over a pretty bad injury. You know, he's a little older. Like, the game changes. The game
Mhm.
changes. So I don't know. He's gonna look great in Heat colors. That's the drama of the NBA will continue.
It will always continue. They will always find a way to give us something to talk about. Yeah, I don't know what's going to happen with this Memphis team. I think in the offseason, they got to take a serious look at what they want to do and how they want to kind of get to the next point. And are they willing to make the moves, the risk to get like real good guys around your job, Bane, Jaren Jackson, Bill? Is your build not with one of those three guys? You have to move one of those three guys to get better across the board. Whether it be Bane, whether it be Ja, whether it be Jaren Jackson, it feels like the NBA wants it to be Ja to be the next one on the move, just for the narrative and all that type of stuff. But
Yeah,
I think realistically, like you gotta look at Memphis before Ja wasn't doing much in that interim period from when they got rid of Conley and Marc Gasol. So I think Ja's been like a real turning point for that franchise. So I think it'll be hard for them to kind of move on from, unless it's for something ridiculous. I don't know if you're getting that ridiculous package for Ja at this point for him right now. So I think you're gonna kind of have to stick it out with him
hmm
and find other ways to improve your roster, and find the coach that serves, I guess, him the best at this point. If that's the way that you're looking to move forward with that team.
yeah. I mean, that's the sane approach, but you
Sane don't
know,
win.
sane don't win, right? Like, look, Danny Ainge wouldn't have been scared to make these moves. Um, even when the Raptors won, they had to ship out like one of the best draft picks they've ever had, who
Yeah.
committed himself to the city. But you needed the talent upgrade, and you had to give up somebody really great to do it. So the Raptors gave up DeMar DeRozan, who, like, you know, in Raptors land is like a statue worthy guy. Not that he's really a statue worthy guy, just like, Raptors fans
Raptors
are
land. Raptors land.
intense
Yeah.
in Raptors land. And you got Kawhi Leonard back, and you got one season, and it worked out. It worked out, right? Maybe you do give up like a Ja Morant, but you get back. Geez, I don't know. I don't know who you could get back that would make giving up Ja Morant worthwhile.
That's the issue I find when trying to like do anything with a job. He's such a dominant like lead ball guy that like you kind of need a team that needs that. And it's not the most teams that he's a difficult fit, but when you can find a team that fits him, he'll be like spectacular.
Yeah, that's
Just
why I
one of
think
the
it's the
team.
Heat. I just don't think you guys,
Hopefully
like,
they'll do it.
what are you giving up? Like Bam and Hero? Like,
And then there's no point of the trade anymore.
it's just like, welcome to the Ja show. Yeah.
Yeah. That'll be fun, but
He'll have Wiggins.
yeah, he'll have Wiggins. I think that's good on like disappointments and surprises though. Like that was good. I think that rounds out like mainly most of the biggest storylines that we had throughout the year.
Yeah.
But there's a team that I do want to talk about before we head out. Is the Milwaukee Bucks. Because they just suffered the injury to Dame. There's been some rumors that maybe Dame, Giannis, and Doc were all seeing eye to eye. There's stats floating out there. You can find them of what it looks like when Dame's playing with himself, playing by himself, versus when he's playing with Giannis, and how much better he is when he's not with Giannis. And that doesn't seem like it should be a thing that's happening, but it is happening. So when we look at the Bucks moving forward, what do we make of this team? Do we see them as a team that's going to have to kind of blow it up and start fresh because they don't have much more to improve upon? Or do we see them as a team that's just going to try and run this thing back and back and back until it falls off completely?
Yeah, are they a zombie team? Like, are they just, this is all you're going to get? Are they brave enough? Like, if it's not working with Dame and Giannis, like, you got to trade. Like, you don't trade Giannis, although it's the NBA, they could. You trade Dame, but where does he go? What do you get back, right?
Yeah, what do you want
I
from
would
him?
I would assume his value is diminished since you traded for him. Are you looking for like a Josh Giddey-esque trade where you're taking a shot on a young player who's shown some value but hasn't like really broken out yet? And if you're doing that kind of thing, is Giannis like, he's what, 30 now?
He must be around there. Yeah, 30, 31.
Yeah. Like these are prime years. Like he's got to compete now. He doesn't have the and he wants to. Yeah. Like he doesn't have the time to see this redone, right? Like sure he signed on long term, but is Giannis the star that everybody's been waiting on? That Oklahoma, that Houston, that the Magic, that Pistons are all going to just start a bidding war over.
I mean, the Brooklyn Nets came out today saying that they have full plans to making a run at Giannis. Whether now, why would Giannis want to go to Brooklyn? I don't know, but they are ready for him. But
bless
yeah,
their hearts. Yeah,
he might be the guy because I can see him moving before Dame only because I could see Giannis being fed up with being a Buck. They've tried. I mean, they've done a lot for him. They got him a championship. They brought him Dame. He said he threatened to leave before. They brought him Dame. He threatened to leave before that. They brought him Drew. So they've always kind of made amends and found a way to patch it up with Giannis. So I don't see how this will be much different. But like you said, he's 31. I could see him looking over his shoulders. He doesn't have Chris Middleton no more by his side. His guy. Brook Lopez is looking like he's getting near the end of his run. I could see him looking side to side and being like, I don't think it's even possible to build something around here anymore. I need to get to a winner. So I can see it. Whether it'll happen or not, we'll just have to wait and see. I think it is an interesting one with the Bucks because you brought in Doc to kind of make that relationship work better, and it was worse. It's been worse since he got there. We were talking about it before we started airing. I think they're just about like 4 games above 500 with Doc Rivers as their head coach, which is not what you would have expected since he's had Dame and Giannis for that entire run.
Yeah.
You expect them to be closer to like a much higher win percentage than that. They gotta look at themselves really hard in the mirror this summer and make some real tough decisions when it comes to Giannis, when it comes to Dame, and I think even with Doc Rivers, and if this is the way that they want to move forward.
No, I agree 100%. It's so tough because like Milwaukee being a small market team, right? Like getting a player like Giannis just like gives them relevance. And we saw it with Dallas. Like Dallas traded Luka for another really good player, right? Got Anthony Davis in return.
A top really 10 player even.
Yeah. The fan base hates it. They don't care.
They're beside themselves.
Yeah, they lost their guy, right? Yeah. And Milwaukee's going to deal with the same. And you don't want to do it. Like, you don't want to do it to your fans as GM. You don't want to make this move. But it's like the smartest move you can make.
They have to reset. They have nothing to. They have no way to get better. They've used they traded 5 seconds for Jay Crowder like a year or two ago. Like they got nothing. They got nothing left to trade. The only way to reset your franchise, and this is the same thing that Phoenix is kind of looking at, since they made such aggressive moves, is looking at moving a KD or a Booker, just to replenish that replenish their assets, get some youth in there, rebuild. Hopefully your culture that you built winning games all these years can hold strong, and then it carries through to the next era of whatever your iteration your team is. But at some point you kind of have to do that replenish. Miami kind of did a quick one with Jimmy. I know they probably would want to do a better one if they did it the offseason. If they had known that Jimmy was going to cause such a ruckus, which they kind of probably should have known, because it is Jimmy. He's done this everywhere. If they had known in the offseason to do it, like you were mentioning, they could have done it then, and they would have gotten a lot more to replenish. So I think Bucks are now in that situation where they can kind of be ahead of it and get a lot, and be set up fine for their future, since they're not really contenders anymore. I think it's safe to say.
I would agree. I think their window has passed them by, and I think that's like the hardest thing for any team who's like won a championship in the last half decade, let's say. And was it even the last half decade? When was
2021?
Okay, last half decade, yeah. So, and they still have a superstar, right?
And
so you have a top 10 player, unquestionably.
Yeah, he was top 3 in MVP talks at some point this year.
Yeah, and deservedly so. Like, he's amazing. You've had success only 4 years ago. This is a tough point to say to yourself, like, we can't do it. We don't have enough else to get this done, because, you know, more often than not, you have teams throughout the league that are lacking that top 10 player. They've got everything else. Everything else, and they don't have the top 10 player. And that player is harder to find and harder to acquire than everything else. But sometimes you've run your course with them, and you can't support them anymore. I don't think that Milwaukee can support Giannis anymore.
Yeah, I think, like, when comparing it to the Luka situation, I think this is far more warranted than the Luka situation. Just nature of the thing, just nature of how this is going down. Like, they've exhausted pretty much every option to build around Giannis, and they won a championship with him. So, you know, it's not like they haven't done right; they've done right by him. With Dallas is more so you just don't like the guy. It just feels like you just don't like him. That seems personal with you guys. Yeah, I think that's good for this episode. I know we said we're going to talk about some rookies, but maybe next week. Maybe next week. Anything else before we head out? Look at the standings real quick if there's anything else that pops up to me.
Yeah, I mean, I would suggest the higher competition right now is not in the NBA looking to make it into the playoffs, but in the NBA looking to tank, sag for flag. The tanking has been quite impressive. I mean, it's obviously makes for a bad product. New Orleans shut down Zion and CJ McCollum today, I think.
Yeah.
Today or yesterday. What's wrong with Zion? I thought he was healthy.
He is healthy. He's been playing fantastic.
Yeah, exactly. Why are we shutting him down? Why are we shutting these guys down? Like
Ingram with the craziest ankle injury of all time.
The most magical sprain ever that you just, like, you can walk on it, you can practice on it, you can do full basketball activities on it, but you cannot play on it. Yeah.
No.
Not happening. So I know the NBA will probably look into more like anti-tanking rules and like what they can do, like the minutes that like star players have to play is like one thing that's been like getting manipulated, things like this. So the NBA's got a challenge, but when the prize is so great for tanking,
yeah, like Wemby year was like this too.
Yeah, exactly. And like, can you blame him? One of the surprises of the year is just like how good Wemby is already. If Cooper is one of these players, like fantastic. I just feel like this draft is like fairly deep at the top. So just like there's just a lot of value in trying to get a good player. You may not get, a Victor level player, but you could get like a lot of good players, much like the Cade Cunningham draft.
Right. Yeah. Yeah. I think it's really, you get like a solid like top 5 players there.
Yeah.
Yeah. It could definitely should be interesting. I think the only other team I kind of want to shout out for surprises is the Rockets, because they're second in the West, right? Second in the West right now. And it's kind of sort of, we've come to expect it with them, which is crazy when they weren't that good. They were 11th last year. They finished 11th in their conference last year. And they're second. It's just because they had their turnaround halfway through the year that we kind of foresaw this happening, and it became kind of expected. But I think same way as Detroit making a huge leap, I think this Houston leap has been quite impressive and just should be a little bit more noteworthy.
And I think it's sustainable, just like Detroit. I think that these teams are here to stay. Neither has like the Orlando fatal flaw of just having like 0 3-point shooting. So like, I think they're ready to go. I think both Houston and Detroit will be playing each other in next year's finals, and it'll be great. Now
the Twins Bowl.
Oh, that would be good. That would be good. Yeah.
That'll do it for this episode of the NBA Hangout presented by Playbook Sports. I'm your host, Brandon. You can follow me on Twitter at BJAY93_. You can follow us at the NBA Hangout on Twitter, on Instagram, and you can follow Dave here every week. Like and subscribe on YouTube as well. Visuals are there. Thank y'all. Peace.